All right, we're back in the studio for an After Dark episode with Aaron Zar from SLNT. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Scott. Pleasure to be here.
I'm stoked to have you. You are you're a local guy, which is awesome. Just over the hill in Santa Cruz, so it's 30-ish, 35 miles like south of here.
Yeah, it was a breeze to get here.
And I bumped into you almost literally at SHOT Show back in January. And we chatted for a few minutes, and I think what I had mentioned to you at the time is, wow, it's interesting. I'm just like literally bumping into you because I had literally just come across like one of your ads, by the way. So your Facebook and Instagram marketing is working.
Gotcha.
And I had saved it. I remember saving it because I was listening to it, and first off, I thought the quality of it was very good, but also I was very interested in the products that your company's behind and produces. And I wanted to go back to it and check it out. So all of a sudden I'm standing there in front of you and kind of hit it off, kind of found out a little bit about what the company's doing and where it's from. Then I'm like, dude, time out. I got to have you on the show because I think other people should be hearing this conversation. And so here we are.
And here we are. Yeah, we literally bumped into each other. I think I saw your name tag. I was like, oh, Scott, love your podcast. And we got to talking.
Yeah.
I guess that's what's good for trade shows, huh?
It is. That
puts people in the mosh pit to meet each other and network and
all of those things. Yeah. It was a really, it was a valuable experience for me in that respect. I mean, I got a lot of work done while I was there from a podcast perspective, but I met so many cool people and built relationships that are now, continuing to grow and turning into other relationships. And so, yeah, hats off to the SHOT Show folks for putting on a great show. And I'm looking forward to next year for all the same reasons. But let's get into SLNT.
Sure.
So I want to know a little bit about the company. And to start this, I'm going to give you like my high level overview on what I know about SLNT. So SLNT produces Faraday bags, which protect your electronic devices, laptops, tablets, phones, whatnot, from basically sending or receiving any kind of a signal. And so it could, there's kind of three pillars that we could kind of build this around in terms of why this would be important for somebody to block the signals or block some of the things coming off of or into these devices from like a privacy perspective. So just when we can get into the privacy piece, that privacy pillar. And then there's a security pillar, which like obviously works hand in hand with the privacy piece, with all the information that's on our phones and on our laptops and whatever else, hard drives, whatever. And then the next piece being a health perspective, which is intriguing to me, given obviously my background and where I'm coming from the health and fitness piece, when we start talking about things like EMF and radio waves and things like that. So there's a lot to uncover here.
We got to unpack all that.
We got to unpack it all.
You got time?
Yeah, let's do this. So I'm going to let you start with like SLNT, who you guys are, what you're doing, how you're doing it, who you're working with, and then we can kind of dig down into some of these rabbit holes.
Sure. Yeah, those are the three pillars. So I think it's important to segment them because it really drills it down into the unique use cases of how like a signal blocking Faraday bag could really benefit a lot of people's lives. But yeah, SLNT is a family-founded company in Aptos. It started by my father, Randy, and it was conceptualized to encapsulate a device and have the ability to go off the grid. Simple as that. Like the old tagline was "Cut your electronic leash." That was we started prototyping in 2009, so way ahead of its time, pre a lot of external factors in this world that have come to light that have really like shined and woken people up to why privacy and security and health is really important in relation to mobile devices and IoT and internet as a whole. But yeah, it was a simple, there's a provisional patent was filed on a unique little magnetic closing pouch utilizing shielding material. That was way ahead of its time. He was actually got on the news, which was pretty funny. In the Bay Area, talking about
Tech Central.
Yeah. But I don't think people really could connect the dots in terms of like, okay, well, why would I use this product in my daily life?
Yeah. Can I time you out for a second?
Sure.
So what was the intention there? What was pushing him to do this?
I think my dad's always, he has a few other patents and invented things. And I think what he foresaw is that how great is it when they're like pre-cell phones and you're like, cool, I'll be there at 5:00. you just trust that your friend's going to be there at 5 o'clock. You don't need to be in touch with them and text him every hour to make sure he's there. And I think he foresaw that the convenience would landslide over the privacy and security and autonomy that people had in their own life.
Mm.
And
yeah, I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
given where we are.
And he's an early adopter of tech. So he's like, oh, this is great. This is convenient. But how do I really turn this thing off? And like analog phones, you used to be able to take the battery out and like actually kill it. Now it's impossible. So not impossible, but like for the most part, iPhones and Android devices, they're embedded in and there's no hard switch. Like you're relying on software to tell you that it's off. It's not really off. To backtrack on that, the initial idea was like, hey, here's a tool that's useful that you could use. There's a time and a place in everyone's life that you could drop your phone inside here and block cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, and essentially mute your phone from the world, whether it's in a normal everyday routine, whether it's when you get home to be with your kids and your family, whether you're in the military, whether you're law enforcement collecting digital evidence. Like the list goes on and on and on why being able to encapsulate a device is important.
So this was really about the cell phone at the time.
Biggest culprit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So he makes this bag or this container. Is it a bag? Was it?
I wish I had an original one here.
Because like what we're looking at now, when I see, and we've got one sitting on the table here for those people that are looking on or watching on YouTube, it's a soft bag. It looks like any other soft pouch, bag. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have like this is one right here. So this is a more recent. This is the actual one that snaps in and out of this bag, so it's removable.
It's like modular then.
But the original one was basically like a looser pouch that had a single closure.
Okay.
And yeah, it was as simple as that. It was like, hey, look how cool this is. And I remember him showing me when I was in junior high. He's like, oh, look at this. I could encapsulate my phone.
Okay.
With this material. That was 1998.
So let's talk about the material for a second without giving any proprietary secrets or anything like that, patented secrets or whatever is out there. How has it evolved? How has the product or the material evolved from then? Yeah, it's almost 15 years ago to now.
The actual materials are, it's based off metal. So you're utilizing metal woven into fabric.
Okay.
Where it's advanced now and where we have exclusive rights to multi-shield. It's a material that we use is that it has anti-corrosion properties. So it's much more resistant to corrosion and wear and tear, and the effectiveness of what it blocks is at a higher attenuation. So that's a perk for us, but our actual IP lies in the construction and the utility of the products. And we hold a few patents and a few other impending. We always got things cooking.
So moving, yeah. Well, as fast as technology and everything else moves, and we're going to talk about that, you got to keep up.
Yeah. And I think our overall goal is just to incorporate in people's lives so it isn't inconvenient. Like we want to make it relatively effortless for you to adopt our products.
Smart.
So our latest products, the E3 stuff is, hey, it looks good. It's made with sustainable materials. It has integrated Faraday compartments so you could block the key fobs, your phone, backpack for your laptop. And you don't have to worry about it. You just get like instant peace of mind that is relatively effortless.
So when Dad came up with this and he patents this stuff, where is he going to first from a market perspective?
The internet.
Okay. Well, sorry, like who's he trying to sell to first?
Yeah, good point. I think the original pitch was like empowerment. It was like, okay, here's an opportunity, and which it's remained today. But
for the public.
Yeah, for the public. It's it was like such a big thinker that he's like, okay, here's an entire world that's adopting mobile technology and everyone needs this, which is, hey, a big, bold claim. But it's tough to convince people to change their habits. I mean, you're in the fitness business.
Yep. It's the hardest thing to do. Behavior change.
Yeah.
Habit change is the toughest thing.
And
what, all the things.
And what makes people act when they do change it?
There's some type of a pain point that has driven him to that at some level. I don't want to talk about pain points, but yes, that's what does it. It's like finally, like I've hit rock bottom somewhere.
Yeah. That's so. And the same thing with, like on the fringe, people get their identity stolen or something happens. And it's like, okay, what do we hold most valuable? It's like, our nude pictures on our phone are valuable. Our finances, everything, like our entire phone is very valuable. When something gets out, it's like, oh, someone just came in my door and just stole stuff.
It's a violation, yeah.
So when you get that violation, I think it wakes people up to like, okay, what are some best practices around mobile devices, for example.
Yeah, so it's very reactionary though. It's after the fact. Same going back to fitness. It's like, well, now finally I can't use my shoulder, or now I've gotten on my doctor and my blood work says that I have all of these metabolic disorders, and now I guess I should probably address this because I could die, or I can't do the things in my life that create quality in my life. So now I have to do this, and then that's, without getting in too deep into it, that can often be met with a little bit of resentment, like why, and resistance even still at another level, which is wild to me, but nonetheless, there's a pain point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think that's kind of like how the Western world operates, unfortunately, is reactive or symptom-based, where it's like, okay, how are we proactive or make incremental change? So, hey, I want to drop 20 pounds. Not going to happen in 2 months.
Right.
Might take 3 years.
Right.
But if you see incremental change and like get to a point, like how great are you going to feel? Same with privacy and security and health. Like if you're working at it and like make incremental change or adopt software tools or physical tools to make and educate yourself along the way, give yourself time.
That is a really great point. I would imagine it's also not linear. Like there's not a straight line to doing this because this is multifaceted.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So you're going to have to choose maybe what the bigger rocks are, if you will. This is kind of how we refer to it in fitness and nutrition. Like, let's move the big rocks first and we'll worry about the little stuff later. What are like the big rocks that maybe people should be thinking about? Or maybe I'm jumping ahead too much, but maybe we can answer that question. Like, what are the big rocks if people are like, I've never really thought about this. I just go along my merry day, with my devices and my stuff. And I haven't had my shit hacked, so I'm not really worried about that yet. Or at least I'm not reacting to any of that stuff yet. I'm not emotional about it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things like big rocks they could start moving now?
I think one of the biggest ones is, we think about data and like how much we put there out there as individuals is monitoring. Like if you're a younger kid, like most kids aren't on Facebook anymore. It's like, why? It's like, you don't need to share all that stuff. But when we're talking about all these other platforms, like be mindful of what you put out there because your life might look a lot different in 5 years and you might want to do something and you've put a digital print of whatever you said or stated or a video you did that could catch up to you. So I think it's being mindful of what you put out there. And then the simplest step, I think, is just adopting software tools that mimic the convenience of like Gmail or certain browsers. And you could adopt things like Proton Mail or use Signal or Pseudo. Like there's encrypted ways of communicating. And that should empower you in itself, that you're not feeding big data and big tech more information about yourself and you have control over it. And then probably the biggest one is don't give out your cell phone number to anyone except people close to you. That's more important than the social security number.
Why?
Social engineering. If I have your cell phone number, which I do, it's safe with me. We exhibit and have been partners with DEF CON for a long time. And you give someone at that show your cell phone number, they'll show you how they could exploit it. But you could really be manipulated from like social engineering. You could be sent packets and malware, and you could just be absolutely messed with. So it could really cripple someone's life, like financially and personally. So I think the cell phone number, like giving it to Safeway or giving it to someone else, like give them a burner number, make one up. I think simple steps like that where people feel like they have to relinquish information, like ask, like, do I have to give this? 99% of the time is no.
Right.
So why?
Yeah, there is, because I ran into this even on our own website. Like if you're trying to get somebody, there's some type of call to action to some type of a lead magnet, right? To where you're downloading some type of something for free or you're even purchasing something.
Yeah.
In almost every case, they're asking for a phone number.
Yeah.
And it's a required field within the form that you're filling out in order to make that purchase. So some would say, like, but dude, this is going to shut down, like, really, at the end of the day, it's shutting down a convenience. Some would say maybe it's shutting down my access. But if I can't move forward in the purchase process or this download process or whatever without providing my phone number, what's the answer? What's the alternative?
Well, I think the cool thing is what I mentioned before, there are alternatives to having alternative numbers or encrypted numbers that are so easy and turnkey and relatively free that you could just have an extra number that you give out to the internet and keep your one tied directly to your like cellular. And there's just, I think that's what's cool today is that it's chaos. We're vulnerable. Shit's going wild, but there are tools to kind of mitigate how vulnerable we are.
Yeah, it's interesting you're saying that. So I guess I never looked at it from a social engineering piece. I looked at it from more of a, you're fucking annoying because you're gonna sell my number to somebody, and the next thing I've got all these telemarketers or whatever power dialers calling my phone. So I actually give them the house phone to the gym.
Yeah,
right.
Good.
So in almost every case, however, like there are times I'm like, well, shit, like let's say I'm booking a plane ticket with, I don't know, a company like Southwest, right? They go, well, how do you want these alerts for, canceled flights or changed flights? Because particularly now, today's day and age, talking to anybody that travels regularly, this shit's happening at a very high frequency. And I don't want to, maybe miss an email or whatever else. So I give them my phone number, and I don't want that going to the gym. I want that coming to me so that I can react appropriately or respond appropriately.
Fair enough. I think there's all good intentions, right? And I'm not perfect in that either, and I don't think anyone is. But if you start implementing certain practices, and it's like, okay, all my alerts for any time I travel come to this number. Like pseudo mail is a good example of that. You could create 10 different numbers. And then back to the lead gen thing, our website, we do the same thing. Mm-hmm. We ask for information because we want to stay in touch with you. Mm-hmm. But anyone could use any information. Number. Like we're not fact checking or like we have fraud levels set up, but it's probably lower than most, and we can vet that. A lot of people use one-off emails, like privacy.com. Sure. And there's ways to mask your credit card. It just takes extra effort.
So this is the point. So I'm kind of digging in here to make a point to people that are going, oh, it's so inconvenient, and wow, I don't want to have to run my life that way. And then there's other people probably listening that are going, yeah, no shit, man. Like this is all stuff I already practice. We're going to get into some other stuff. Like for those people that may okay, tell me something I didn't already know. But I can relate this to fitness and nutrition and health management and, and your wellness and whatever else, and that people think they have to be perfect all the time. And so if they're already decided, well, I can't be perfect, I can't do that every time, then they just throw their hands up and they don't do anything, and they kind of olay stuff, and they move on through. And you said very specifically, look, you don't have to be perfect all the time. I'm not perfect. My number's out there. I just try to manage very specifically, and I'm very aware of where it goes and when it goes for very, very specific reasons. Not you have to have a burner phone for every time you fill out a contact form or anything like that.
No, let's get real. Like and that's a really good point, because people view this big mountain. They're like, oh, I'm going to climb this whole mountain. It's like, well, shouldn't be asked to climb the whole mountain. It's like, get to the foothills.
Right. Let's move the big rocks first, and then we'll worry about the little things later. So just having access to something like that all right, so I'm diverting these phone numbers over here so I can continue on my life, not be inconvenienced, still do my online shopping. You
can do everything.
And everything. But very, very simple solution.
Yeah, there's one of our ambassadors, affiliates, Michael Bazell. He's awesome. He teaches you ways to communicate and essentially erase yourself from the internet, which could be a lifetime of work because it's ever evolving. It's very.
I would imagine
it's not linear, as you said. There's technology is not just going to be as it is. It's just going to
continue to
ramping up. And I don't know if we want to touch on AI, but that's a whole different beast. That what I will say about that is I think people would be very smart to start educating themselves on what's real and what's not real. Mm. And I think that goes in line with best practices around your privacy and security. There's things smarter than us out there, and we have to be able to navigate it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think we should talk about that a little bit, but not yet. Let's go back to Dad's original patent, his product. He's putting it out there.
We're just getting the kindling going.
Yeah. I think, there's some people out there, I'm sure, that are like, oh boy, I'm not turning this off because we got to get to some other stuff, and we will. Before that, I want to know a little bit more about so he creates this pouch. And it starts with the idea of everybody's going to need this who has a cell phone. So this is for the greater good of everybody. Does it escalate from there though? Because I got to imagine that's a pretty cool patent. And it's a pretty cool quote unquote invention and product at that particular time. Got to be other people eyeballing this. And immediately what comes to mind is who doesn't want their shit out there? And the first thing that comes to my mind is any government agency is going to be like, well, this is something that we need because we don't want people hacking into things that could impact people's personal security or national security or state security or whatever the hell. So I got to imagine this escalated a little bit. Can you talk about that?
Sure. From there, I think there's two sides of it. One side's like consumer facing, and one side's like the use cases of the Department of Defense or agencies or State Department. But yeah, so it was launched online. It actually used to be called MIA Mobi, and that was like missing in action mobile. Okay. And Silent Pocket was just tied to the actual feature of it.
Okay.
So it's kind of morphed over the years, but I got involved in around 2011, 2012, and essentially had some product. There was some traction, but it was very little. And I studied marketing background and came in, quit my job in San Francisco selling high-end wine, and just had enough money to kind of float myself and take it on as a pet project. And it was my dad's idea and desire to always have like Zar and Sons contracting or something. That's like cool. That. And
I dig that.
I was a commercial electrician, tough trades. Herniated my neck riding a dirt bike, got out of that. So my life kind of like ping-ponged me in certain directions, but he presented this opportunity, and it was rudimentary. It was such a little basic pouch, but the pillars were still the same. It's like, hey, privacy, security, health. There's an empowerment aspect of that. And there was a tie to fashion. It was like, oh, let's make it look good.
Right.
So yeah, the original products were all leather. There was like different styles. He even had like, so I have all the old products. So what I did when I came involved is just kind of stripped it away. I was like, how can this be branded in a very direct focus on privacy and security? Because those are the people that are going to adopt a product like this. Like changing someone's habits around health, I think is a bigger challenge. So I just focused on privacy and security, cleaned up the product, called it Silent Pocket, and really like dove into refining what that patent entailed. And I continued the patent process, which took me 5 more years to get it issued.
Wow.
Complete pain in the ass. But I worked with different samplers and factories, and we really refined the product to a place where it's tight, it's flat, it snaps shut, has a mechanical element to it. And the benefit of having this like very thin, sleek pouch was that, okay, this could be embedded into a lot of different form factors. So you want to have a backpack or a briefcase, or you want to adopt the products into your current carry items, then there's no like gap to jump into, just like adopt the products. Like a laptop sleeve that we make now looks and feels like a normal laptop sleeve. It just has a little bit more like functionality to it. And then when your device is inside, like boom, mute from the world, nothing to worry about. No one could hack it. So it just kind of evolved from cell phone being the primary culprit. How can we accessorize like smaller pouches around devices? And then it evolved into laptop cases. The thing about laptops are, like if you use an Apple laptop, it's, same thing as your phone, it has everything, location. And when you close it, it's not off. It's still like, can be harvested. It's still beaconing. And that's an issue in airports or international travel, or just like generally sitting in a coffee shop. So when you're not using your laptop, you're really not using it. You're not like touching the outside, holding it around. So like keep it in something secure. That became a really strong use case for us. And then the cell phone is always going to be number one.
Everybody has one, and they're with them all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's so sad to think people sleep with it right next to their head. Maybe we'll save the health aspect, but there's a few things to talk about there. So where was I going with that? The product line just evolved. It was like, okay, what device needs protection? And then like a simple one that's been very front of mind for a lot of people is like key fob security. Like you have a wireless key fob to your Mercedes or your new car. Okay, it's a $60,000 car, but thieves could do a relay attack and basically boost the signal from your inside of your house out to your car, pop it open, drive it away, and you could protect it with a $20 pouch.
We need to talk about 2 things here. 2 things, yeah. So you may have just that may have just zipped right over people's heads.
Oh, sorry.
With the key fob thing. I don't think a lot of people realize how that works. So I want to talk about that. The other one was the laptop and keeping it closed and being on the, it's still working, right? It's still working, and it can be a personal story. So I want to come back to that. But let's talk about the key fob thing. Explain to people how this works. Like, how does your car get stolen without somebody having direct access, like physical access to your key fob?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. But yeah, I get fired up about there's so many use cases with how the products really like benefits people's lives. So to drill in on the key fob, it's, you have a key fob, and the way they operate now is that they're in constant communication when they're in proximity to your vehicle. So if I park my car in the driveway and I hang my key fob on a little hook by the door,
front door, yeah.
Okay, it's still like saying, "Hey, what's up? We're talking." So what people do is take like a relay attack. So somebody will hold like a larger antenna and boost the signal and put it next to the car, so as if the key is right next to the car. And the second guy pops open the door. So that's step one, gain access to the car. And then some models, it will mimic that the key is actually inside.
Because the signal is that strong.
Yeah, and then they'll drive away the car.
So you got bad guys sitting on your front porch, basically, between your car and your,
they're
your front
silent.
door. And they're just hanging out. Somebody drives them up. There's 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
One guy's holding this antenna, right?
Mm-hmm.
One guy is in the car, the getaway driver who's going to drive the guy that's not driving your car away, right?
Yeah.
The other guy goes up to the front or goes up to your car door, opens it up, and pushes the button, starts your car, and drives it away.
Yeah, not in all cases, but yeah, that's the worst case scenario. And yeah, it's real. I mean, it's been highlighted in the news. It's been around forever, but
I know it has. I mean, that's how I learned about it. It was just seeing like, holy shit, did I see happen what I just watched happen there? It never crossed my mind. I don't think a lot of people are living in that world because they're looking at fucking cat videos, and that's what's being shown back to them on their.
Which are great.
Yeah, which are awesome.
Oh man, love them.
But the point of that being is like they're not aware. They don't know. And this could be the case for any key fob for any vehicle.
Yeah, they're all vulnerable to a certain extent. I mean, Teslas have been hacked and manipulated at,
That's the one that was the one that was really hot around here for a while, certainly in the Bay Area.
There's a few around here, right?
Yes.
Teslas?
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, it's either the Tesla, the Mercedes, or the Prius.
What was the game that I used to play, Punch Buggy? You see a Volkswagen Beetle, and we punch whoever's sitting next to you in the car.
Yeah.
Can't really play that anymore.
Don't get me started.
You got to play Tesla now.
Yeah, it's what it is.
Go home bruised.
That's what it is. Yeah, so you got this. So that's going back to the key fob and protecting your key fob is very simple. It goes into the bag. And
yeah, we make a little Faraday bag for key fobs in different sizes, extra small and small. And you just pop it in there and then you're protected. And they cost less than $20. And you can protect what is arguably the second biggest purchase of your life outside of a home.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's on the radar. I mean, you speak to different police departments, like it's an epidemic in certain areas and a bigger issue in the metropolitan areas, but it rears its head and makes the news and goes away. And
people forget about it.
Modern, technology being used for nefarious purposes.
So you have these cool products. You've made them look great.
Thank you.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're fashionable, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lifestyle component to this. If you're active in business, I see it as kind of a crossover. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the original products were like leather, on the outside. Not a lot of people carrying around leather anymore, but there's some.
We still carry a leather series as well. Yeah,
so you're kind of meeting everybody's needs. Like where you're going to use this could crossover from, the Saturday, let's just say the Saturday, girls' day out or whatever, brunch, to also taking it to work at Tesla, to work as the administration or whatever that you're doing there, and it would look and function just fine. So they look cool. They're very, to me, they feel very durable. Like it's good feel. It just, I mean, when I look at like, when I go out to, or when you walk into like some type of I don't know, like a handbag store or something like that, you're going to see a product that looks similar, right? From just like a materials perspective and whatever. Yes, you walk into Gucci or, Louis Vuitton or whatever, they have their stuff. But they're always going to have like a material piece, right?
Yeah.
So it suits people. It's not like and it's not for good reason. It's not glaring. I'm carrying a Faraday bag.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. We've always been very discreet with our branding. Like it says SLNT, which we pronounce silent, but no one's really the wiser on that.
Sure.
And it's mute black, and all of our products have always been very discreet because we don't like people buy our products they have for over a decade, but no one needs to wave the flag.
It's privacy.
Hey, look what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, versus the look what I'm doing with the flashy watch and the Louis Vuitton bag and the Tesla parked in the parking lot and all the things, and you're a target.
Yeah.
But let's go back to okay, so that's some use case for who, maybe listening to the show is just your average everyday civilian that's just trying to do a better job of protecting their stuff.
Yeah.
Who else is buying this stuff? Who else is using these products?
So the product right here, it's like a crossbody that has an inserted removable Faraday sleeve to it. All sustainable materials. Like it's sleek. We just launched it like a month ago. But we make a whole dry bag series. We make like larger devices for like EMP protection. We really run the gamut in terms of like good looking premium Faraday bags that are methodically thought through on the aesthetics of it, the functionality, how they incorporate into that use case or life. But on the the extreme side of things, like in the background, the Department of Defense, like talking about like special operations, whether it's like the Air Force example, everyone has a personal device.
Mm-hmm.
They're either in proximity of sensitive equipment that could have radio frequency interference, or they're susceptible to being hacked or tracked when they're airborne. So outfitting those guys with functionality that allows them to mitigate those threats instantly is really life or death. And if you look at what's going on in the war in Ukraine and Russia,
1,000%.
I mean, look at the headlines. I mean, like the cell phone's the biggest culprit to being killed.
Right. And they're sending in drones to kill you.
Yeah, it's just drones that have, it's thermal detection and signal detection. Those are the two biggest threats for these guys.
So simple.
So simple. So like for Silent as a company, we really wake up in the morning and get fired up for the use cases that are, protecting the modern warfighter, and like how can we equip them, make sure that their operations and the defense of our country and good democracies are prolonged. Like no one needs to be killed by a drone if you're a good guy. And we make products that mitigate that. And we're really proud of that. And we're growing within that sector.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, this is just like technology, this with the way the world is going right now, geopolitically, like this is an ever growing market, and there's no slowing down. I mean, you guys just keep your foot on the gas.
We're trying to keep our foot on the gas as hard as we can. Government and defense moves slower, but there's really good avenues to grow within as a small business within there. So
I wonder, like, how do you answer the question? Like, well, the good guys have it, then the bad guys certainly have it too.
Go to our Instagram ads and see what people comment. Like,
oh yeah, I can't wait. Like
just silly, nefarious things that people are like, oh great, now the criminals could hide when we're trying to detect them. It's like you play that game of like, then what? It's just like is it the collective good,
right?
Then we're talking about everyone needs to be vaccinated for the greater good. Like the greater good conversation doesn't fly with me. I'm sure it doesn't fly with you either.
Oh no. I mean, the internet is a wondrous place.
Yeah.
It's just there's all kinds of interesting things that come out there. But yeah, that would be my point too. Like what are we really talking about here?
Yeah, well, look how many beautiful Toyotas are driven in different parts of the world by bad guys. I mean, cell phones, like everything could be used for nefarious purposes, really. So we don't focus on that. Like it's inevitable that our products will end up in people's hands, but we're closer with the law enforcement than we are with criminals.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we give them tools to protect their personal security, or another use case to bring it up is like evidence collection. So you show up on a crime scene, there's 5 cell phones, bag them in a Faraday bag, take them back to the lab and extract the data that's needed. So on one sense, we're, empowering the individual. We're like, hey, protect yourself for who you are. You have the right to do that. But on the other end, law enforcement is designed to be good. So if you're doing something where you've murdered somebody and you left a cell phone behind, then that data is going to get ripped out of there.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe we should read off some Instagram comments.
Yeah.
They're hilarious.
No, because then we get into the ones that I see on our side and whatever, and I'm just like, sometimes I just got to turn them off. Like, okay, guys, I can't, like, this is dumb.
Better
like,
not to play in the comments.
I don't play in the comments. I literally turn, you can't comment anymore because this is wild. Like, I'm not going to contribute to you being able to comment that kind of a comment anymore. And it's not like I see these things as like, there's probably a little bit of truth in every comment. If you take the good stuff, then you also, and you believe that to be 50% to 100% true, then you also have to take the bad stuff and you have to accept that as being 50% to 100% true. So I'm all about that. But when it starts getting wild, I'm like, all right, we're done. Like, we're off. I'm making an executive decision here. But let's transition off of that and get into, let's get into this privacy piece.
Yes.
And maybe educate people, including me, because I am I like to think I'm well read, but this stuff always is like gets past me. Like, I can only go so far into it. And I feel like I have this very high level of sort of awareness, but I don't have any deep level of knowledge. And I know I'm not going to know it all. So I'd love to be kind of updated and brought up to speed on a few things. Mm-hmm. And hopefully this helps people out there. So let's get into the privacy thing. And I think we need to define a couple of terms as we get into the privacy thing. Like, people have heard this term RFID and EMF. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned or referred to, like, I think the EMF stuff a little earlier when we were talking about sleeping, had cell phones next to the head, that kind of stuff. Can we define that? Can you help me understand what those things are and how they work?
Sure. Yeah. So just to combat EMF, so electromagnetic frequency, that is like a radiation associated with electronic devices that we would put into the health pillar. So we could come back to that. But for RFID, it's radio frequency identification. And every wallet, for the most part, or even like handbags, they have like RFID blocking. Like, it's commonplace now. So your passport has RFID in it, enhanced IDs, transportation cards. Mm-hmm. And then NFC operates on the same frequency.
NFC
is near field communication. Okay. So kind of hand in hand. But the difference with this, like, RFID is like one way. It's like lift information. Lift it off your passport. Great. Thank you. NFC is like Apple Pay. It's like communicate back.
Okay.
It feeds information both ways.
So when you say RFID and being able to take information, somebody could, there's a signal that could be sent that they could then take, or it's giving off.
It's like readable.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's readable. So yeah, I mean, some of my closest friends like, oh yeah, he makes RFID products. Like, okay, that's like the tip of the iceberg, as I was explaining earlier. But a Faraday cage or Faraday bag, which is an adopted term, is where we're at now, because we're blocking RFID, which for the most part's 13.56 megahertz. But what we're really doing is blocking cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, and NFC, protecting against EMP, which our products are third-party tested against for high elevation EMP, military standard, as well as EMF.
So somebody can't fry your phone.
I guess, which is a whole nother pillar, about
I was just going to
being
say
prepared, which is a really big use case. For example, for the military, massive use case.
It's huge. Yeah.
EMP hardening of airplanes, of equipment, of sensitive electronics, classified curing, all that's really important. And then you look on the other extreme, it's like, okay, so you have a bunker and it's EM proof and you're stocking up on ammo. It's like, I think both are right. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the one I just mentioned gets kind of the bad rap on being like, we've blown it out on television and like, oh, you're a prepper. But if you stay in the mindset of being prepared for natural disasters, or that, cybersecurity is real.
That's a very real threat.
Yeah, it's super real. There's a really good book, if you ever want to, which is like standard issue reading for some people, called The Day After. It's all about EMP. It's a novel, but kind of paints the picture of how reliant we are on the electrical grid, how we are on services, and like.
To me, that's the scariest one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Because once you shut all that down, things get weird way fast. Because at least it's like, people go like, well, it's a natural disaster, it's a nuclear blast, it's things like that. People die in that case, right away. And so the population is less, your competition may be a little less. But when you look at EMP, it's just like all of a sudden, everybody on Earth or in the vicinity or whatever is now without technology. They're outside of communication, right? They can't call for help. They're lacking basic things that they rely on a daily basis, going back to the reliance piece or self-reliance piece. And things, I think shit gets wild real fast. That's the one that scares me the most.
Oh, yeah. I think.
And when I say scared, I just mean like literally.
Things will buckle.
Real fast.
Real fast.
Yeah, infrastructure is gone, like in a heartbeat.
And there's a small percentage of people that are just salivating at that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for everyone, like we can't live with our head in sand. You know, like there's one of my close friends, I hope he watches this, but I was like, do you do anything to prepare? You live in the middle of Los Angeles, like natural disaster. Do you have anything on hand? He's like, no, my dad will drive me over water or something. I'm like,
somebody else will do it for me.
I'm like, boy, like that's, I mean, you saw what happened with COVID.
It's
like
a big gamble.
Yeah,
people do
messy.
Weird shit. So yeah, I mean, and our grocery stores weren't shut down, and it didn't turn into complete chaos. It seemed like it might, but we're talking toilet paper, or whatever. But when the water's not coming, when the sewage doesn't work, and when you don't have electricity, and you don't have gas, and there is no emergency services, and the food that stops coming, and all of that stuff, like things get weird. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. You mentioned the prepper piece being getting a bad name, being prepared. And being a doomsday prepper, I think they're not necessarily synonymous, but I digress. So if we're going back, so the products are protecting from all of these things, the incoming and the outgoing.
Big wide range of different frequencies. So, it lends to a lot of different use cases. So you mentioned you want to stick into the privacy pillar. Yep. When you look at privacy, not every place on this planet has the same civil liberties as we do. And I think that's something that should be very much protected. And we've had examples of outspoken people that have been whistleblowers and done things that have shined light on situations or what's really happening with data collection and harvesting and backdoor keys. There's two big names that I don't even need to mention, but I think those were examples of people kind of waking up. And it was like, oh, cool, wake up. This is what's really going on. But it's almost ephemeral, kind of slides out, and you're like, oh, life's great. It's like, did you forget what happened 6 months ago?
Well, how about less than that? How about less than a month ago?
No, I mean, like, it keeps happening in that particular situation. It's like people don't want to address.
It's recurring.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, so the privacy piece, and I think part of it is what you alluded to there is how willing people are to give up their very private information. Yeah, and I mentioned about like we started with the phone numbers, and you said stop doing that, I think the first thing you said was, hey, just be very aware of where you're putting your private information, be it social platforms or wherever else. But the next thing was like your cell phone number. So just going back, like this willingness of people to just give up what should be or probably should remain really private information, just in general. Like you're literally putting it out there, not to mention what's stored on your device, which could be harvested or accessed without anybody even touching that device or whatever else. So we talk about that a little bit and kind of what your thoughts are on that.
Well, you wouldn't want someone just like walking in your house and seeing you naked and like looking in your closets and like going through everything. Like there's a level of like we have locks on our door. We care about our privacy. Like privacy is pretty awesome to have. Like look at China, look private over there. Like so we have an opportunity to kind of we're already at the stage where we have to reclaim it a bit. But I think
couldn't agree with you more.
But we have an opportunity to just be mindful of like what we put out there. Actually, my father, he has great quotes, but he's like garbage in, garbage out. He's like, you feed the system garbage, it spits back out garbage. So
it's built to do.
So why not just feed it garbage when you don't have to? If it's a situation where like, hey, we're friends, I'll give you my cell phone number, great. And I think it just goes along with how do you browse on the internet? What type of device you use? Like the cool thing that I mentioned before, there's software that's readily available to like make your life better and more secure. And like as a company, Silent, like we advertise, we're utilizing certain things to advertise to people to a certain extent. But there's also tools to combat that. And Yeah, I don't know. It's an ever evolving thing that I think people should not be overly alarmed about, because I think there's a lot of people that do have a grasp on this and understand it. And I actually do believe in like younger generations of like being more mindful of like how they engage and what they put out there. So I think there's like a resurgence of privacy that is quite attractive. But at the same time, like convenience probably always wins. So yeah, I mean, there's just going to be like more sketchy and bad things that happen that kind of blow the lid off of stuff. And then people want to be reactive to that.
And we're talking about the things that they generally have control over, right? Which would be their own devices and what they're actually putting out there with regard to typing in their information or scanning or whatever they're doing with it. Not to mention Chinese quote unquote weather balloons floating across the United States and capturing,
right?
And maybe communicating with your personal device or whatever else. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but I don't know if it is or not. I wouldn't put it.
I don't think it's a stretch at all.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't put it past the capabilities. That's for sure.
You drive down the highway, you're being harvested. Like,
talk about that.
Well, I mean, like, where do we live in the Bay Area? Like, there's what's fast track?
Fast track.
Fast track. You basically put a beacon in your car, and they know everywhere you're at, and they pick you up on monitors. And some people have a problem with that.
To the meter, by the way, because they know when you're in that lane and when you're not in that lane.
Some people have a problem with that. What do you think your cell phone's doing for your entire life?
Exactly the same thing. Oh, but more.
But way more. And like, you know, apps collect data. Data gets sold. Why does it matter? It's because it's a slippery slope. And all of a sudden, when you wake up and you have no control, or there's social elements to your life that don't allow you to have healthcare or financial access, and then you're in a situation where you can't live or provide for your family because there's social elements that have like chipped you down.
Yeah, I think what you're suggesting is your social score, or social currency.
Yeah, which is a real thing in a lot of other places in the world.
Oh, it's been that way for a long time. I mean, history. If you study any kind of history, and you mention the country and the region, China, if you study that one at all, that's exactly what was going on there for a long, long time, and probably still is, right? But the point of that is people are not really thinking that way, and until they're met with that pain point of things like their security has been breached. So let's maybe move from the privacy piece into the security piece. So couple personal examples that have come up in the last just a couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, I was back out in Las Vegas, passing through there on my way on a road trip. And I say Las Vegas because we were on the trip, and I'm trying to backtrack as to where did I mess up here. But based on everything we've talked about, this could have been happening for a very long time. And it just so happened.
Sure.
The coincidence I happened to have been through there, but rented a hotel room, had used my debit card to reserve the hotel room, right? And I used that through a third-party booking agent. Everybody knows what those are. I was like Orbitz and Expedia and whatever, so I'd done that. I already have hesitation with that. You know, going back to the cell phone piece, I didn't give him my cell phone. I gave him another number, right? Like, so I thought I was being, sneaky, but I always have reservations putting my debit or my checking account type information out there for any reason whatsoever, as I think everybody should. But I did it. There was some things happening with an exchange of a credit card, and it was like it was going to be a company charge. I was just going to put it on the company when I got there, right? But I needed to book the room, so I did that. Got there, spent some of the day walking around, and in my head, I was thinking, man, if I was going to try and steal somebody's information, what a great place to do that. It's just a target-rich environment. I could be camped out in a van, on a park bench, hundreds and thousands of people walking up and down the sidewalks and all that stuff, and transferring from hotel to hotel, in the casinos and whatever else. Did that, was there for like a day and a night, and then moved on. About 48 hours later, I get the text message from thinking what appears to be a text message from the bank. Did you make this purchase at Home Depot? Right? This has happened before, right? And my immediate response is, oh God, here we go. The card got hijacked again. So, then it's like text back yes or no or whatever. And so I texted back no, and immediately I got a phone call, right? And so this phone call comes in, and from what sounds like, or what's identified as a representative from the bank. This is not uncommon to what I've dealt with before, but in a legitimate way from the bank. This guy's got all kinds of information on me. And I didn't recognize it's not, I'm just going like, oh, we're going through the routine again. You know, this is the thing. I'm
almost in like autopilot.
Yes.
Like, okay, here we go.
Because it's happened before and it's almost, it's normalized. Like you should expect this to happen to you.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through the thing and he goes through this elaborate, this was very organized. Did you make this, no, I didn't make those charges. Okay, well, here's the thing. And it looks like maybe your card has been, compromised. It may have happened. So maybe there was a skimmer used or something. He said a couple things that should have clued me in right away because no bank's ever going to tell you that. They're not going to admit that type of stuff's going on.
True.
So immediately that kind of gave me like I'm at level yellow from green because I'm going down the path and giving information. But he's giving me just enough to give him some back. Now, I never disclosed any like deep information, but it got to this really weird point where the guys go, well, that money's already gone. So in order to get this money back into your account as quickly as possible, we want you to go into your account, tell me when you're logged in, to your app or whatever, and we want you to, see that. And this is the kicker. He goes, do you see that we've created an extra account for you with your name on it in your Zelle contacts? You need to Zelle yourself that money. And I'm like, what the fuck? It's exactly what I said. Wow. I go, what? Yeah. So I go, what? I go, what do you want me to do? He goes, so we want you to, and this dude was on it. Like he was a pro. And I'm like, hold on a second. So I hang up the phone and I open up my text messages and I go back to find out, like to check the text message that I got against all the other text messages that I've got from my bank, right, in the past for similar things, alerts. Sure enough, it's coming from some random number. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude, I'm out. So immediately hang up the phone, call my own bank. And I have to go through the whole process, which is a nightmare because then you get transferred to an offshore friggin' third-party call center. And it was a nightmare. And I was on a trip. I was out in the middle of nowhere. Probably got disconnected like 4 times. Had to go through the whole process again. Nightmare. I'm getting emotional. I'm pissed off. And in the meantime, I get an email from the bank saying, my personal loan for $15,000 has been approved. Just accept here. I'm going, well, these guys are in deep. So my point of this is now I'm like trying to figure out where I messed up. Because now I know there's nothing I can do. I'm caught in this. I'm going to have to go through this whole process. So I'm thinking about it in the things that I did. There was one place that I did use my card sort of on the road. Anybody knows that drive between the Bay Area and Las Vegas knows there's a lot of shady spots you can stop out there. And I did use my card in one of those spots because I had it in my pocket. My wallet was left in the vehicle. I walked into the thing. I'm like, shit, I wouldn't typically do that. But again,
convenience.
It's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm driving at night or whatever. Like I don't want to walk back out there. It's like 30 degrees outside, whatever. So out of convenience, I swiped my card. So did it get skimmed there?
Possibly.
Maybe. The point of this is there's all these breakdowns, right?
Yeah.
And things that I could have done that I set myself up for. What was really scary was how much information this guy had on me on the other end. I'm like, well, where did that come from? It's all information that I've put out there.
Yeah.
Every single bit of it. It's all out there.
Shitty story.
It sucked.
Very real. What a time suck.
That was the bigger thing. And again, like I'll just say the bank was not fun to deal with because nothing was ever documented. I probably had literally 24 phone calls over a 3-day period to try to get things, squared away. I was on a trip, so I didn't have access to my bank account. They shut down your online access, so I can't get in there. When I finally did, this loan's still in there. You guys were supposed to pull that out. What do I do? Do I just go business as usual? This money's all in my account or whatever. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be responsible for, what funds came from where. I'm telling the long story because there's probably a lot of people that can relate to this. But this was the first time it had escalated to that level of, I want to say, sophistication. Some people listening to this might go, dude, you were just being a dumbass. It's really not that sophisticated. That'd be perfectly simple or easy for somebody to do. Okay, smart guys. Great. But that's the reality of the situation for me. And I think it probably is for a lot of other people. And that's how things are kind of escalating in terms of quote unquote sophistication. All of that information was out there for people to take, whether I put it out there or they accessed it, maybe in Vegas.
There's probably a few components that happened on that trip that made it possible.
Yeah. So can you tell us what those are? outside of using my card and the.
Well, I mean, I mentioned earlier your cell phone. Like, clearly that is in the hands of someone. So they send you a text message to mimic what the bank would do, and then they call you, and that's full on just social engineering. They have enough information about you. Like, one of the things, if I had take your number, name, email, and I call your cell phone provider, I guarantee I could change all your shit. Like, just because I like Jerky Boys and I grew up with messing with people on the phone. Like
the Jerky Boys are classic.
But that's all it is. And if they stick to the script, like, they're in, who knows where they're at? They're never going to get caught.
Right.
So yeah, that's a real thing. I mean, I don't know. There's a multitude of ways. Like, if you have an open Wi-Fi device and you're sitting in a coffee shop, or Vegas, for example, like, I encourage you to go to DEF CON. It's insanely cool, really eclectic, really smart people, awesome crowd, like the tip of the spear in terms of like what can be manipulated and taken advantage of. But they have a section called the Wall of Sheep. So anyone that connects to the open Wi-Fi,
they can put your name.
They rip everything. They'll put pictures. They'll put whatever they can on like an.
So you're just you're walking by the booth, and you're like, that's the picture of me and my wife from wherever.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're probably ripping tourists, because anyone going to DEF CON either doesn't have a device or they're using hopefully a silent Faraday product. But yeah, Bluetooth's a big culprit.
So that's a good point. So in one of these locations I was sitting at, and this is what, again, I was just going back to, I was trying to put it on Vegas. Like, I hate Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, everybody that listens to this show knows that. I think it's filthy, and this is part of the reason I don't like it. But
why do you go to Vegas?
It was on the way. It was a stopover. I was there for SHOT Show, right? That was a must. But this was a stopover. The girls wanted to see a show in Vegas. We saw the show, got out of there. I was like, couldn't leave there too soon. But it was also kind of the experience for the little one who had never been and all that stuff. Long story short, I'm standing outside waiting for them to come out of a store. And this probably happens. A lot of people can probably relate to this too. You get the Bluetooth, somebody's trying to send you something, right? This alert, like somebody's trying to send you a message. And I immediately shut that down and then went to my Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings and shut everything off. But I'd been walking around for hours. Yeah. So,
that's two open doors.
Right then and there. So the whole point of this brings up the point of not leaving your Wi-Fi active or your Bluetooth active when you're out. People say, hey, just shut that off so that way nobody can access your phone.
That's a really good point. Like, okay, Faraday bags are a great component and they have a place in your life, but just best practices on your device. Like, if you're an iPhone user, go into your iOS settings. And I guess one of the unique things and fun things about social media is there's a lot to be learned out there.
Sure.
There's people dedicated to saying, hey, this is how you make the adjustments. But the basic ones, like, make sure all your radios are off. If you want cell, great. Even airplane mode is like a step in the right direction. But buttoning up those, or Find My, turning that off, unless you're sharing it with your significant others or something. But just kind of taking those preliminary steps is at least like one door. And then Faraday products, another door, and just best practices in general, like giving out your cell phone number, your personal information, and adopting tools like pseudo-mail or Signal. I mean, Signal still uses your root cell phone number. It's just on like an encrypted communication platform. But yeah, there's simple little apps to download to avoid kind of the bullshit.
So basically what I did was I created like this sieve with a bunch of little holes for anybody that has the willingness to stick with it to get into my information. Could have wiggled through any one of those little holes to get it done.
I think so. Yeah.
Here's another interesting thing. So going back to the giving information and the people's willingness to like give it up and how you can get caught up in the moment. So for a second there, I was caught up in the moment only because the way you mentioned it, I think, and I hadn't really thought about it. This was kind of like autopilot. I just wanted it to be over. I was like, fuck, they're gonna I have a 10-day road trip in front of me and they're shutting down my bank account. How annoying. Can we just get through this?
Yeah,
right?
Solve it quick.
Yeah, let's just deal with it. And you're on the phone and whatever else. So I just needed this to be over. So I was having a conversation with an employee who went through this situation, but I won't use it specifically. I'll use another one where it happened to somebody who thought they were applying for a job with us. So they basically put their information out there on the internet to somebody who had basically hijacked our ad from Indeed, the site Indeed, and somebody had contacted them saying they were from us, right? And in that process, they had offered them the job, given them an offer letter. There had been a negotiation. There had actually been an interview process. It was very short. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Same with the guy that's here that was sharing me the same story. When he was finally clued in was when they asked him to send his personal information, like his W-4, right? His address, like which has your social security number on it and all of those other things. He's like, hold on a second. Like, I have a few questions before I start sending this. And he's like, no, go ahead and send it to us. And while we're processing, we can answer your questions kind of thing. He's like, whoa, this ain't right. In this other case, this woman contacts us and says, hey, you guys kind of fell off. We were talking. She calls the gym. Right. And she goes, hey, we were talking. I just want to know, like, what's going on with the employment process because I've sent you guys all my information. And we're like, who are you? And no idea.
Oh, boy.
So this was somebody that didn't necessarily have their information hacked, was just basically conned out of her information in a way where she was like, I need a job. By the way, this was during like height of COVID. Like people are looking for jobs and looking for ways to make money in a time, and was leaving another job. She kind of gave us the story. She was leaving another job. She's like, I need to backfill what I was doing because I'm losing this other position, this other income. And so she was all too willing to make this process happen very, very quickly. And I think that, again, in terms of protecting your privacy and your security, is taking a step back, not after it happens, but in the process of the things that you do and like, what am I doing to safeguard my stuff versus just willingly putting it out there? Because I think this is a good thing, which sucks because I guess you're telling people to be cynical or skeptical or whatever, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think it's how we have to be these days. I mean, you got to do it with the news. You got to do it with brands.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Greenwashing, different news channels. You're like, what agenda is going on? What narrative is trying to be pushed? So I think like those are two pretty clever.
That's what I thought too.
Really clever.
Mm-hmm.
And some people might listen to this and take action and be like, all right, I need to like put a different filter on when I view my phone or take in information. But it could happen to anyone. Like if you're pinched when you're on a road trip or something feels inconvenient or you're trying to move into a new job. And, I think people have like positive intent and like want to do good. So they're taken advantage of. And it could happen to anyone. It does happen all the time.
Yeah, what's the propensity of this? I mean, I don't even know. Like, how many people have their personal identity stolen a year?
I should have looked up the facts. Millions.
Yeah.
I mean, there's massive breaches all the time. I mean, LastPass was a password manager that just got hacked, and
right.
At
any given time, I can open up my iPhone. And I can see, when you go into your passwords and it says, these passwords have been compromised in some kind of a leak.
Oh, really? That's nice.
Yeah. So there's this function in there, right, where it'll tell you like these passwords for these websites or whatever has been, is known to have been part of a leak of some kind. Whether it's Target or, wherever that you may have done some online shopping where your financial information lies in the back end to quote unquote check out faster because you checked that box and they've now stored your information and it's quote unquote encrypted, all of that stuff. Like at any given time I can turn that on and there's dozens of them.
Yeah. That's frustrating because it then goes back to like, it's a never ending journey.
It never stops.
It's like a second job in a sense, which is, a pain in the ass. So I think people just fold and then they're like, oh yeah, it's cat123. It's my password for everything.
Yeah.
Shit.
Right. But I don't want to, discourage people from thinking a little bit more, I guess, or being more vigilant about their stuff and going, look, dude, I don't want another full-time job. I already got one. But let's maybe move away from the security piece and move into the health component. Mm-hmm. So if you're not listening yet, you're like, yeah, it's too much for me. I don't care. I don't have that much money anyways. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, but like, do you want to remain that way forever? Or the little money do you have, you want that gone?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Like I don't.
I think beautiful thing about podcasts and the internet is there's a lot of quick information and access to things that benefit your life. If you don't go down the rabbit hole too far.
Gotta be careful.
I'm just thinking incremental steps to being like, hey, step one, be a little bit more aware of what could happen to you. We're not out here fear mongering, but like, bad things happen.
This is real.
So yeah, move into the health, which I think is a really interesting topic. You are all about human performance and making people like. I really liked one of your podcasts about, I forget the exact terminology, but like most people don't even know what it feels like
to be healthy.
To be healthy. I think that's a sad truth. And yeah, when it comes to how we connect with things on a mental level and how do cell phones and the behavioral change that they bring like affect us mentally and how it affects our relationships to the actual like physical damage that they could be doing to your body. Those are kind of two components of it. But I mean, Dr. Huberman came out with a little video the other day, and there's been like more glom on that, which has been known for years, but like most men carry their phone in their pocket right next to their jewels. And yeah, it's like lowers testosterone. We're not designed to be in proximity of high frequency radiation. And that's exactly what cellular and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth operate on.
It just keeps going up too. And we keep moving standards.
Yeah.
Like,
and like
10 years ago, like what we're doing now was like, that's completely unhealthy and that's not acceptable. But now it's okay.
Yeah. Like I would be alarmed if there was a Wi-Fi router underneath my chair right now.
You'd be pissed at me for not telling you?
I feel like we'd be kind of like trapped in this like mini Faraday cage getting fried. But those you probably would be like, oh yeah, of course I wouldn't put a Wi-Fi router underneath my pants. But your cell phone's that. And we're constantly bombarded, like micro cell towers, like we're bombarded by radiation. I think some people's tolerance for it is higher than the others. But there's definitely an effect on people that is far worse. And what I will say about EMF is it is a bit of smoke and mirrors with some products. Like if you're buying a sticker to neutralize the radiation on the back of your phone, like, no.
Stop it.
Like that's not going to do anything. So it has a bad rap in that regard.
Because there's money to be made on fear.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, like, okay, like 5G is something that got blown way out of proportion and that it was caused COVID and, like makes you grow extra ears, like all these different things. Like, so unfortunately EMF's associated with that like extreme thought around it. A Faraday bag, like the products we do, like actually shut down the radios in your phone, like fully. So it's real EMF protection. But, what was I going to say on the like the mental health side of things, we have like a free program to disconnect from your device and actually promote you and encourage you over a week and give you the steps to take 24 hours off your phone. I mean, when was the last time you took 24 hours off your phone?
Yeah. So, to tell you the truth, outside of last time I did that was being almost kind of off grid and being in nature.
When you were forced into it.
Almost, but it was almost like an expectation. Like when we get there, this is going to be one of the best parts about this is we're going to disconnect. Like it wasn't like, oh, by the way, we're collecting up all the phones. It was like, no, I'm going and part of this is so that I'm not near the phone.
Great.
But it's been a bit. Yeah, it's been a bit. It's like fucking, it's like a hot shower, dude. Like it's like after spending a couple days in the wilderness without a shower, it just feels so much better.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah, it's cleansing.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it as well, but that's changing human behaviors and habits. And I think we have to view the processes, like how do we change the processes that lead to habits and identify those and do like positive association with, or negative association with how we use our devices. So that could be like starting with, hey, no cell phones in the room. And how does that look at home?
It's very, that's a...
Which ties back into, okay, I will say physical health people focus on a ton. And this is a topic that's been discussed. Like, oh yeah, I'm just going to get ripped. Like you got huge biceps. Like you probably do a lot of mental work as well.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a growing wave of mental health and focus on like, let's feel good as humans. Like let's wake up and be like, good, great, positive self-talk. Like, let me feel great. And that's like a physical and mental component. So I think cell phones are
it's a roadblock,
huge culprit in how we function in society and how we build relationships. And there's tons of positive, but I mean, most people don't know how to deal with it. Like I've fallen victim to them all the time.
Every single person does, like at some level. Like if you're in the world of business or whether it's finance or service industry or whatever, like here's an example. So even if you're that person, so here's the thing. So we have a rule, like no cell phones at the dinner table.
Yeah, like great.
You don't bring the cell phone to the dinner table. Well, guess what happens when you go out to eat now since COVID? They don't even bring you a fucking menu. They say, scan that little thing with your phone, right? And you get the menu there. So there's a whole
terrible.
I got so fired up the other day. Like I was like, first off, that was kind of like the no cell phones at the table thing. It wasn't something we just decided one day and it was all perfect. It's like, okay, everybody's happy and merry. Like the phone would get left in the pocket, it would buzz. Somebody would pull it out like mid-bite or whatever to look at it. And then other 3 people across the table would go like, what the fuck? That's the rule is we don't have the thing. Oh, you're right. But I needed, like I thought and I was listening and I'm kind of expecting this thing and whatever else. And so over time, it's fine now. This is the practice. Yeah. We don't do that. But my point is like you go to the restaurant now and the whole thing was like, it started with like, we're touchless here. So we're not going to touch your menu and spread COVID to you and all this other stuff, right? So without going into that rabbit hole, now everybody's doing this as a means to whatever, save money or make it easier for them to make changes to their menu without costing, there's not a cost there in terms of reprinting and all that. And I get that. I find it very annoying for a couple of reasons outside of the no cell phones at the table. One, like I have to scroll, which keeps me on my device even longer, which takes time away from the time that I should be spending maybe being social or having a meal or what mealtime means to me or my friends and my family or whatever else. Like, so it immediately starts there, right? And then the phones are out. And then, what happens? An alert pops up, the message comes in or whatever else. And so you've already interrupted and sort of broken my rule. Now you could ask, and I've actually done this, like, no, I don't have a cell phone, we're not bringing the cell phone out at the table. Oh, we don't really have any printed menus right now. Like that's actually happened. Like so my point is like culture is such that like the cell phone is part of everything now, right on down to how you order your food, how you get your gas, how you do your banking, how you buy your groceries, and everything else. So what you're asking people to do, going back to the behavior change, is not just behavior change. It's literally a societal, cultural shift back to something that we're now at a point in society where people have no idea what that looks or feels like because it's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
That is a very, very different place to be. And so I get going back to the comments in the comments section, like if I make the comment, I'm going to do it right now. If I said, look, back in the day, we didn't have cell phones. I don't know what, Facebook is, Squarespace, any of that stuff. People are like, oh, these fucking old guys. Like, you always want to take it back to the old days, and whatever else. And I'm like, no, I'm just referencing, for me, it was a better time and place as far as I'm concerned.
I miss analog.
Yeah, I'll get smoked for this, right? Like I miss the old DOS systems, at the, behind the retail counter or whatever. My point of that is like, now you're talking about doing this behavior change or this health, taking this or implementing this health component to a culture of people that have no idea what you're even talking about. And going back to like, they have no idea what health actually feels like because they've never been healthy. And so they don't see it as a roadblock. They see it. So, we just did this, we just did an episode the other day and we talked about, the theme was like eliminating the hurdles. Like this isn't a hurdle. Like the cell phone was never a hurdle for you. It was actually part of your life, right from the get-go. And so, having it next to your bedside, right, is just normal behavior. Having it in your pocket, it's like, how do I get through the day, operate my business, stay in touch with my kids, my family, whatever else, without this, people just don't know any better at this point, and they're not willing to necessarily make the change to work through different things. So it's a huge undertaking, and I don't know that it gets a whole lot better, man.
It's definitely not set up for success.
No.
It's not. And these devices are designed to capture us, hijack us, spend more time, everything from the design to the colors, and it's all programmed, so we're just in it.
Never stops.
So it's no wonder it's almost impossible. And that's a huge challenge for people to navigate.
It's very real. It's a very real challenge.
The restaurant one pisses me off too, because it takes away the beauty of going to a restaurant. Like, okay, I can make food at home, but now you're basically like a slippery slope to hijacking my quality time. And then I've done it with friends, and like, cool, everyone's huddled over their phone, like looking at the menu. It's like
everybody's disconnected.
Wow, I guess we'll just order our own shit.
Yep, everybody's disconnected. And again, the time spent in there and the things that can happen along the way, the phones are out. So it's like, you've already brought you've already brought the bad thing to the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could have left it in my pocket next to my jewels.
Yeah.
and suffered, there.
Maybe the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, what's the lesser of two evils? Like leaving it in the pocket, not
the phone stack was pretty fun when that was going on. It was kind of a trend.
Yeah, I said to see that.
First one to touch their phone pays.
Yeah, but again, like now it's normalized. Like we all have our phones out.
Oh, now you're next to a friend that has a company that's budding, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I have to get this."
Yeah, but now if I put my phone next to your phone, you could steal my information. So I'm not going to do that anymore.
Oh yeah, the phone stack, the ultimate. One megaphone.
Yeah, I think that's this health component is an interesting, pillar that your company is taking there, and that you're bringing awareness to this, and that you understand that, like, hey, everybody's going to have these things, these devices, and we've made these products that can help you navigate your life and your lifestyle, from a privacy and a security perspective, but that also that there is this health component, and that it is kind of, well, you're providing a device that can help you with that health component by blocking those things, but you're also acknowledging that it's a problem. Like the very thing that this thing was designed to support is also, it's doing it because there is a bigger problem. But you're sort of acknowledging, like, this is a necessary evil. Like, we're going to have these electronic devices. It just is where we are.
Yeah, that nothing's slowing down. Like 3 years ago, I was like, this iPhone's perfect. It never needs to evolve.
Just wait 6 months.
Yeah. But I think one thing about like the disconnection, like my unofficial title, which I actually prefer than CEO, is the director of disconnection. But to actually take your device, if you put it in a drawer or something, you're probably still thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But, the Faraday cage provides a barrier. It's like, okay, it's in here, it's shut down. No one's going to be able to get in touch with me. Like that mental piece in itself, whether you're like working at your desk and productivity, it has less opportunity to hijack you. And I think those little moments are really important for people.
I hadn't thought about that.
Regardless if you worry about privacy or security, like having a tool to get you to a step to change your processes to lead to better habits, like that's critical.
So let's talk about this. This is actually I'm really glad you brought that up. I had never considered that like, it's almost like, so for my dog, when she goes into the crate, it's calm down time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're done. We're not playing. Yeah. We're not messing around. You can relax. You're not guarding the house right now. You're not guarding any people. She's very protective, of her environment.
She knows it.
She doesn't have to be super alert. Like, she gets to down regulate. She gets to chill. She doesn't like it at first.
Call her off.
Okay,
call her off.
Yeah, so she's in there, and she's just chilling, and she doesn't really like it at first. There's a little bit of anxiety. Like, what's happening? Are you guys leaving the house? Are you just putting me in here so I can relax and chill? Sometimes it's in the van. We have the collapsible crate. We leave her in the van. Like, she doesn't like it at first, but she's okay with it after a few minutes. Much like probably putting your phone in this thing. Same thing with the dinner table. So the reason I'm bringing this up is bringing it into the home environment, particularly with kids, and starting to adopt these different behaviors around these devices and around the behavior and protecting your own privacy, particularly with the kids and the stuff they're putting out there and how they're doing it, and the security perspective, and this concept around like, look, my no cell phones at the table thing is not novel, right? We weren't the first ones to come up with that. Like I've been over to houses before. I had this client once, he had 5 kids, right? Him and his wife and 5 kids. And like when they come home at the end of the day from school, from like 3 till or 4 o'clock past dinner, everybody has to put their cell phone in the basket, which is on the counter. No cell phones. It's homework. It's get stuff done. It's go out and play. Keep yourself busy on something other than the cell phone until after dinner and homework's done and everything else. And then it had to go back in there at night at bedtime. Right. So they weren't in the rooms. Yeah, great. So if you had a cage, a Faraday cage or a Faraday bag or pouch or whatever to put all these things in, you're taking one step closer to keeping people a little bit more healthy and whatever. And it's the same concept. It's like when it goes in here, we do other things and we learn to forget about it. We learn not to be dependent on it and whatever else. So I wonder, like, and you're out there and you're promoting your company and your products, what conversations come up about what I'm talking about now with kids and families, particularly from the youth perspective? Do those come up? Are you talking to people about that stuff? And what questions are they asking or solutions are they looking for or anything like that?
Well, my daughter's only 4 months old, so she doesn't have a cell phone yet.
Not yet. It'll only be a matter of time.
But having my first kid really like highlighted my wife and I's like perspective on how we're going to integrate phones into our family life. But I think like one practice, like if I come home from work, and like I'll spend a moment to decompress, get whatever I need out of the phone. And I'm not perfect. I don't do this every time, but get what I need. So when I enter then the house, like, cool, I'm breaching this wall. And when I get in here, like I'm on. And I don't need the distractions from owning my own company and all that. It's hard to do.
It's hard.
So I think those type of things really help set up for success. But I think for kids, like one thing that I hate is seeing people, like parents, open up their own like newborn's Instagram page and just like blasting photos of their fresh, beautiful little innocent child all over there. So, that's something I've been, very mindful of, like, okay, where pictures of my baby being placed.
It's not never, but it's not all the time. Is that what I hear you saying? Or is it never for you?
There's been very little.
Gotcha.
Like on a social side of things. But I mean, I think like as she gets older, having the luxury of a smartphone is like, okay, I could keep an eye on her. I could keep protected. There's all these things that help keep me peace of mind. But how, like, I didn't get a cell phone until I was 16. Like I'm 39 right now. So I was kind of at this cool cusp where I didn't get a little tiny flip phone until I was 16. So my life was fine until that.
Yeah,
I was doing just fine.
Exactly.
So I think learning to navigate, like I don't have the answers for that, but I like a stern family principles that allow you to at least have the opportunity to operate the best you can, like efficiently and healthy. And I mean, I couldn't even imagine what it's like for a teen to be on social media.
Well, I can tell you. And
do tell.
Yeah, I can tell you, and it's hard. It's very, very hard. There's a cultural thing there, obviously, and part of it is that's how the kids communicate. And they don't know any better.
Yeah.
At 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. That's how it's, when they came into this world, going back to posting, their parents were posting, pictures of them as infants, and all the way till now, it's just how the communication happens. And, there was a point where there was like a birthday party and we didn't know about it. Like there wasn't an invitation. We didn't get an invitation. There was a conversation. Hey, like I didn't get invited to the birthday, or this birthday party happened. We're like, how come she didn't get invited? That's kind of weird. It's like, the weird kid, like she's not getting invited to the party. Wasn't that at all. It's that the invitation went out over the airwaves on the cell phones. Kids was in a text. Well, a 10-year-old doesn't have a fucking cell phone. She's not texting. She doesn't have any of that. But that's the social dynamic that exists there. On top of all the other shit that you're probably already aware of and know about, and we don't have to talk about in terms of, body image issues, what's happening from a socialization perspective, a sexualization of children, all of the stuff that we could go down in all the rabbit holes, which we're not going to do today. I reserve that conversation for another time with you.
Okay.
But the point of that being is they're navigating that is going to be very, 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 very tough. But I think now, in talking to you, one of the things that I had never thought of, and it comes up, but not in this way, is why for the kid. Because the kid's like, well, all my other friends have them and they're all doing it. And you're trying to come up with some rationalization outside of, well, I'm the mommy or I'm the daddy. That's why you can't have it. I said so, or I don't want you doing that because being able to sit down and have these conversations based on the principles or the pillars of, privacy, security, and health probably could give parents a very good platform for having these conversations, because any conversation that comes up after that about why they shouldn't be on it or why they can't be on it or whatever else, you can relate back to one of those pillars. I don't think you've left anything out. You brought something up earlier. You said there may be a fourth pillar, and I can't.
I think that was the EMP side of things.
The EMP, so that's a different deal.
Yeah.
But for the kids. But the point of that is like any conversation you have could probably relate back to one of those pillars. It's very similar to like health, fitness, nutrition, wellness.
Yeah.
Like there's pillars within each one of those, and if you're not doing those basic things, or if there's a problem, you're not achieving a result, or you're having some type of health issue, you can always reach back to these pillars and know there's something you could focus on there or come back to home base on. I think it might be, for me, moving forward with the 10-year-old, that could be the conversation going forward, especially as she's now understanding things more and becoming more mature. Like, those are really good places to bring it back to. How will this impact those things? So I'm telling you no, or I'm giving you a limitation, or we're trying to negotiate, right? I'm using this as a reward, the positive versus negative or whatever else. Which one of those pillars can I latch onto here and use as maybe a teachable moment, so that my child is prepared in the future to make better decisions, unlike I made and have been making with putting my shit out there, or giving my cell phone number to putting my banking information on the Expedia or
in a
Orbitz.
Sense, you were less equipped to deal with all that because technology came into your life later, and it's like, boom, let's get involved.
But I will not make that excuse, because now I know.
Yeah, well, now you know. Yeah. But for
a long time, I didn't. Yes.
I think maybe one of the harder things is self-regulating yourself and being an example, which I'm sure you are a great example for your children. But if you're on your device, like, okay, infant to toddler to teenager is going to be like, well, I'm on my device.
Right.
So I think kind of owning up to your own faults.
Absolutely.
And setting yourself up for success so that, the people that look up to you follow in line. And I like the teachable moments. If you have good use cases within like why privacy and security are important, I mean, there's a lot of things to turn to and explain. I feel like kids, I mean, I have nephews and stuff, but like, kids are pretty smart these days.
They're sharp.
They have access to a lot of information that I didn't have access to.
They're sharp. They're intuitive too. They get it. Like to not credit them is a disservice to them. Like they if you talk to them, and they know. they're sharp. They're really smart. So yeah, let's kind of circle back here. So, because I guess what kind of comes along with this, and without getting into like parenting advice and all the things that can go, that where this conversation could go, I guess at the end of the day, what it comes down to, I keep relating this back because it's so easy for me to do, to like health, fitness, wellness, and obviously there's the health component in your pillars here, is the responsibility that you have, right? You are fully responsible for this information. It is your information. It is your privacy. It is your numbers. It is your addresses, your cell phone numbers, your email addresses, your passwords, your credit card numbers, your social security number. That is you. It's been, and yes, it was generated somewhere from some place and it was given to you. But once that happens, now you can only control you and all the things that go into it, right? In terms of protecting it, keeping it private, protecting it once it's wherever you're going to put it, because it usually has to be stored or housed somewhere, and then how you deal with it going forward. So there's a huge amount of responsibility that comes along with it that I don't think most people, probably acknowledge, particularly with having a device. So, if people are thinking about like outfitting themselves, right? You mentioned a couple of small products, like the fob, the key fob thing, or the pouch for your cell phone.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Well, yeah, where do you encourage people to start?
I think I really like the cell phone. I think the cell phone, like if you get a small sleek pouch, like something like this, and you drop your device inside, try it, see how it feels. It's like, okay, out of sight, out of mind's a real thing. Like, and you maybe are traveling at a moment, or I take walks with the family. We don't bring a cell phone. If we do, it's in a pouch for like backup emergency. Like,
does the phone have to be off for it to be okay?
No. Yeah. That's the convenience of it. Turning your phone off actually takes a while.
Yeah.
Hold it down, do all the settings, process. Then you have to reboot it up. So you just chuck it inside here and it, doesn't alert, won't do anything. If you have the other thing about sleeping is if you have an internal clock set, your alarm will still go off in the morning.
In the bag?
In the bag. Because it's an internal component on the hardware. So it's not reliant on
that's interesting
software,
to know.
Which is great. And it actually preserves battery overnight because there's no background connection to cellular.
It's not having to keep up or connect with anything. It's not having to do any talking to anything.
When they were analog, the phone would be like, "Where am I? Let me just drain the battery."
Right, and exactly. Like if you'd be on roaming, or whatever back in the day,
or just a little intermittent service.
Yeah.
Like if you take your phone and you're driving into the woods and you're like a little spike of service here and there, your phone's just going to be like cranking.
Searching.
But once it's inside one of the silent products, it goes to dormant mode.
Oh, interesting.
So you could still keep it near your bed. You could have your alarm clock. You could have all those benefits. But yeah. Where was I going with that?
No, I was asking like, where do people start? Like what's a good, so if people are looking to experiment or like, oh man, I'm not really ready to go fully undercover here or fully into the dark, but or off grid in everything I do, but where could I start? So you mentioned the bag for your phone, which makes perfect sense to me because it's very accessible. To me, it'd be very affordable. And that phone is just it's all the things. Like if I'm a crook, I want your phone because I know you've got everything on your phone.
Oh, platinum gold.
It's all there, man. It's very valuable.
I think that the key fob's an easy one. If you have a car that, like you live in an area where you're worried about it, like simple little routine to add. But even probably simpler if you have a laptop. The fact that you're not using your laptop when it's shut, and you could drop it into like a really sleek sleeve.
I already do that, but it's not it's not a silent sleeve.
Well, we'll change that.
Yeah.
We'll help you.
Yeah, it already goes into a sleeve. And by the way, it goes everywhere with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Everywhere.
So I think that's a great use case because you could adapt. Like we make full-fledged, like I have a backpack behind me that has Faraday compartments and it's beautiful. It's just like the big brother to that one. But if you just want a single sleeve, like it functions the same way as a normal sleeve. It's sleek, but once it's on, you get like this overwhelming peace of mind. Like how good is that to like compartmentalize one aspect of your brain that you don't have to worry about?
Sounds amazing. And I need to try that because I haven't had that experience yet.
Yeah, I'll send you one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just like, let's look at this bag for it as an example as we kind of break into it. Just real quick for those people looking on YouTube.
We're on the internet.
So, so I've opened it up. So the entire bag is not necessarily protecting my equipment. It's this sleeve here that snaps out.
Correct. Yeah. I just pull it up.
Comes up. Gotcha.
Yep, pull it up.
Gotcha.
So we have other products that are entire Faraday bags. And they're like a roll down dry bag.
Yep.
That's a whole catch-all. You could put, 100 devices inside and roll it up.
Yep.
For the E3 lines crossbody, like tech organizer, these back straps tuck away. So you could just use it as like a tech bag.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to make the devices removable so they're still functional.
Mm-hmm.
This one's great. Man,
so
chuck everything. There's some stickers inside there for you too.
Right on. Can never have too many stickers.
No.
I want to just kind of make a point here for those people listening that listen to the show regularly. This would be like a crossbody type bag, right?
Yeah, crossbody tech organizer, we call it.
Yeah. So you didn't say this, I'm saying this, but there's plenty of room in this for your EDC gear, whether that be some of your medical equipment and a firearm.
Yeah, 100%.
Flashlight, blade. and yeah, there's still plenty of room in here, and it's not obnoxious. And it looks great, feels great. You could easily fit a full size handgun in there, no problem, and mags.
Yeah, and it's waterproof material, waterproof coated zippers, so it's not submersible, but it could take weather and rain, and yeah, it's a very close on body carry. That well, I guess one thing about firearms, which believer and owner, but to protect against seen and unseen threats is kind of what we've coined it in the past. So it's like, okay, like you have firearms for a reason. Why? Because there's seen threats. There's real physical altercations and situations. Well, on the other side, the unseen threats are like your digital aspects. So you're only as strong as that side on the other side, in my opinion. So having a product like this, like you're buttoning up both aspects of your digital and your physical life.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think if you're working for an agency or for a particular team or whatever, I know you guys are working with several people. I mean,
working with DevGuru and these top tier guys that are doing the sketchiest things on the planet, and they need products to make sure they remain anonymous and have autonomy and could travel in plain sight or land in a country. And like when you land in a country, like you're harvested, like
right away.
You have a cell phone, passport, anything like compromised.
The facial recognition stuff kicks right in, and they're tracking you. So
yeah, so those are like heightened use cases. I'd talk about them, but I think a lot of those should trickle down to everyday people, and you should understand that, like, okay, you actually have tools readily available to promote your civil liberties and have like the freedoms that other aspects or other places in this world do not. So I think it's something to be proud of. Should be empowering. Like you were saying, hey, you have this responsibility. Yeah, you have that responsibility to kind of own. So carve out your schedule, spend a day on just like password management and checking out a new email service, and just like spend one day on it. One day for your life. It'll set you up for 5 years.
Right. Aaron sounds so annoying, but it's also so simple. You know what I mean? It's like when I ask somebody to track food.
Totally.
Track food for a few days.
Oh, see, I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, fuck, I gotta track my food. Oh my God. Really, dude? Yes.
Yeah.
Trust me, you will gain so much awareness from this, and it will put me in such a better position to be able to assist you in whatever you're trying to do when you ask me those questions next time.
Yeah.
Let's just spend a little time doing it, put in the work. It's not a ton.
Yeah, putting in the work, I think, is the step.
Is the challenge.
That is the challenge. But we all, it's justification and excuses. Like, like asking someone to not have their phone on them for an entire day. It's like you'll find a lot of reasons not to do that.
Right.
But it could be the most empowering day of your life.
Well, it certainly could help me, the next time I'm on a road trip / vacation or whatever, not having to go through the ridiculousness that I had to go through during my time. Like that in and of itself would have been worth the $20 or whatever to put my key fob in a thing, or the 40 or 50, whatever the retail stuff is for
They go higher.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. But again, like I look at this comparing your health, and what's the price of that to you? What's the cost of that having been taken away from you when you're at a place where you are now out of control? You had the opportunity to be in control with an investment and some work and, a little bit of behavior change and mindset change. You had an opportunity then, but guess what? That's now been taken away from you because somebody else is there to take advantage of you, and there's evil shit that happens in the world every day, and the bad guys wanted it worse than you did. So now you are quote unquote fucked, and you've got to unfuck yourself. So how do you do that? And is this going to be the most convenient time for you? Probably not.
No.
Right. And can you really afford for this to happen right now? Can you afford for your car to be stolen? That gets you to work every day, that puts food on your table, all of the things.
Yeah.
All of those things.
I really liked what you said, the investment. Like it took me to get into my late 30s to actually like start investing in my own health. Like I got blood work done, started exercise routine. I was like, okay, I need longevity. Investing in yourself and filling your own cup, whether that's like you need to go like surfing or snowboarding and fill your own cup, like do that so you could help other people fill their cup.
Right.
And the same thing, like the investment in like health across the board, which I would even lump in privacy and security into health, because
1,000%. I think
it leads to unhealthy situations.
Oh, I think health, like the health of our nation, leads straight to the security of our nation,
Mm-hmm.
and your home and you as a person. Because if you are unhealthy, like at any level, you are vulnerable and you could very easily become a victim. And then, we're going down that path. I think it's very easy for people to claim the victim status now and expect somebody else is going to take care of it. Yes, I was able to call my bank, right? They erased the loan. They contacted the $15,000 personal loan, right? They contacted the credit bureaus that are out there, Equifax and all those people are like, hey, we're going to get this wiped off your thing and whatever else. They're going to help me do this, so that's fine. I don't have to worry about it. But what if it had gotten further? There's a lot of things that could happen, and depending on your status, financial status, whatever else, these things could impact you at very different levels. For me, it was just very annoying, very inconvenient.
Yeah,
didn't ruin my life. What
a waste of energy!
But what a waste of my time that I cannot get back at a time where I was quite frankly, I was going snowboarding.
Oh,
right?
Really?
Yeah, and it's just
Are you driving to Utah?
Just pissed me off. I was in Utah. Yeah, I was in Utah when this happened.
Good spot to be this season.
Coming back across to Mammoth through Nevada in the middle of nowhere, and actually a couple of other things came up where my head was totally wrapped around this. I lost sleep. Like I was very stressed out about it, and it didn't help. Mostly because I was just pissed, right? And I wanted my life to be back to normal, but that meant I had to do work then. And guess what? It took me 3 days. Right? While I was on my trip to do this, and then another phone call when I came back, you just went back to, hey, man, why don't you spend half a day changing your password so you don't have to spend 3 days potentially dealing with this stuff? So, dude, go check out Silent. Like, where do people go to check out Silent, get products, find out more about what you guys are doing, contact you with questions, all that stuff?
All the things would be SLNT.com. Simple as that. Yeah, we pronounce it Silent. That's the brand name. Or at Go Silent or Go SLNT on all the social channels. We're becoming much more active. We get a lot of DMs, like doing these trade shows and working with really cool, like budding ambassadors, I'd say, and people that are becoming big advocates of what we're doing, that are tied to some of these extreme use cases are awesome. And I think it's waking people up to an opportunity to be like, all right, I'll rise to the occasion. Let me get involved with some products that will benefit my life. Like, we make accessories. You could go get a crossbody from a ton of different brands.
Sure.
Most of them probably just function cool. They look cool. It's a cool brand. We have really direct, valuable utility to our products that is 100% applicable to what's happening in this world. So that's where we're very fired up on where we're at as a brand, and what we have coming out this year is some really cool products.
What I got from you guys when I met with you is it's not like there's not a million people running this company, turning gears and whatever. It's pretty tight little company.
Yeah. We've grown a lot in the last 3 years, restructured the company and brought on really talented people that left other companies to help grow it, from product to operations to sales. And we're, just about 10 people.
I love that.
But we have other contractors.
Sure.
And we hire out the pros to do other things that we don't want to do. So we're a bit diversified in that sense. But if we wanted to be all in-house, it could be a lot more people. But we're cranking. We're excited.
I love it. Just keeps it tight. The communication stays tight. The innovation stays moving forward. There's not a lot of other hands in the cookie jar that are influencing things that may not be in the best interest of your product or the customer, and sticking with the pillars and the reasons you guys are in the business. And those are the companies that I generally do business with, as a consumer. I like to know where my products are coming from and who's behind them.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's not just about a label or a brand or whatever. I want to know the people behind it. I think that's becoming way more important for people these days. And like I said, in this case, it was almost... It was kind of a weird confluence of events. Yes, it was SHOT Show. These things are supposed to happen. But the fact that you're basically a neighbor, this is something that I needed to know about. And this has been super enlightening and enriching for me today.
Great.
So this has been a huge thing for me. I don't know how people will take it on the outside, but what I hope they do is I hope they take a few of the things that you said or that we talked about, and they think a little bit differently about it, because this could be a game changer for you. It could be a game changer for you in a lot of ways.
I biasly will say yes, it's a game changer. You just got to put one foot in front of the other with anything. And I think, okay, we're a for-profit company, but we're starting to use a lot of sustainable materials, recycled packaging. We're a growing company, so we have to make things work.
Yep.
But we have our vision and mission and values and principles as the company. Like, we're very tight right now, and we're very incentivized to field a lot of information from people that want to contact us or have product ideas or want us to talk about anything. But yeah, things will come to light in the next 6 months with some other products and some other form factors that are really exciting. So
dope.
Keep you in the loop with that.
Fantastic. I appreciate the bag and I appreciate your time.
Yeah. I'm going to have to snap a pic with it fully kitted out.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I definitely will. Yeah. Thanks for your time, man. Thanks for coming down and hanging out with me. I can't wait to, actually can't wait for the next conversation because I think this is going to, for me now, I have some changes I need to make in my life, which is going to create probably a lot more questions and a lot more insight to where maybe I can go in depth on a few other things with you. I'd love to have you back down here sometime.
Oh, let's do it. Yeah. I mean, our blog too, is quick examples of how to get started on things and educational points. And, there's things that you could soak up and start educating yourself on just on the internet that are pretty cool and empowering. I would encourage you to go to DEF CON, check it out. It's a wake up call, but it's a really, really fun time. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
You're welcome, dude. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.